Okay, this is going to be a deep one. Let's dive in. So, hemoglobin A1C is referring to glycated hemoglobin. The molecule hemoglobin is what helps you actually transport oxygen throughout the body. When it's glycated, meaning there's a sugar molecule attached to it, it does its job worse. So, you're right there. Also, with elevated glucose, the microcirculation is impaired, meaning the capillaries. Nitric oxide signaling, which would normally open those capillaries bigger, is also impaired. So this can all be affected by high glucose levels. So the hemoglobin is not as good at its job, and the microcirculation is also not as good at its job. So it's going to make muscle recovery harder. One other thing you need to understand about insulin is that it is anti-catabolic, meaning it slows down the degradation of muscle tissue. So when you have poorer signaling for insulin, that anti-catabolic effect is also not as good at its job. Now, I want to address what you said about the insulin sensitivity, because it's not that the insulin sensitivity itself improves after one workout. It's that you have more GLUT4 channels open in your muscles in order to receive glucose. GLUT4 channels are one of the glucose channels that don't necessarily need insulin in order for them to be recruited for glucose absorption into the muscle cells. Movement can do that without insulin. That's why it's a backdoor for people with a high A1C to be able to uptake glucose even though they are insulin resistant. So this is why I emphasize so much resistance exercise, because this is one of the avenues through which you can recruit a lot of GLUT4 channels. Now, the insulin resistance itself is a little bit more complex, and I'm going to show you why in a second. This pathway is what's happening when insulin binds to a muscle cell. It has to activate the insulin receptor substrate, phosphoinositol 3 kinase, AKT, and then all of this is going to lead down to the recruiting of those GLUT4 vesicles right here. These GLUT4 vesicles are normally kept inside of the cell, but when you have that insulin signaling pathway, more of these vesicles can merge with the cell membrane and start to receive more glucose. To improve insulin sensitivity, you'd have to improve that entire pathway, and that happens over time. Because what insulin resistance actually looks like is less of these insulin receptors. The cell will literally bring in those receptors into the cell so that it can receive less insulin signaling and therefore less glucose coming in. It is literally a defense mechanism for excess amounts of energy that doesn't do anything in the cell. We don't want that. But with the muscle, even if you have insulin resistance, you can use your muscle and resistance exercise to recruit more of those GLUT4 vesicles to the surface to receive blood sugar, and you create the demand for them through resistance exercise. So I hope I answered your question, and I hope I cleared up what insulin resistance looks like at the physical level. If not, let me know in the comments below. Happy to answer more questions. Follow this page for more fat loss wisdom. I will see you all in the next one.